Every eye in the room turned toward Judith as soon as she stepped in, which was exactly the problem. She stood frozen in the entrance of the Schiller Hotel ballroom, and the hem of her dress continued to catch the chandelier glow, making her all the louder than she should be. Across the room, through the crowd of silk-suited men beside their phantom wives and her husband, Mingyu's jaw tightened. Judith watched the muscle jump beneath his skin, that telltale sign that meant someone was about to suffer, and moreover, she'd seen that expression before, usually right before people disappeared. Their eyes met, and his gaze went cold, but she smiled anyway. Lifted her chin, letting the dress catch more light. Judith took a step forward, clicking her heels against the floor, and as she walked, she could feel the weight of judgment pressing against her skin. Not just from Mingyu, but from every woman in the room who'd learned to exist as shadows. "You're late." Mingyu's low voice reached her before he did. He materialized at her side with the grace of something predatory, finding the small of her back with just enough pressure to convey ownership using his hand. "Traffic," she said smoothly, accepting a fresh glass from a passing waiter, but the man didn't look at her face. No one ever did, except tonight they couldn't help themselves. "That dress," he muttered, glancing downwards at the fabric. "You noticed." She took a sip, letting the bubbles sting her tongue. "I wasn't sure you would." He then pressed his fingers harder against her spine. "Everyone noticed. That's the problem," he muttered with a grunt. Around them, the ballroom hummed with carefully orchestrated conversations. This was a fundraiser, technically, some politician's campaign war chest disguised as charity. The room held 50 people, and perhaps 100 million won in combined net worth, most of it earned through ventures that would never survive daylight scrutiny. Mingyu's organization had funded the entire event, which meant every person here owed him something, and which also meant that every single person here knew the rules. Rule number 1, wives are wallpapers. "I'm tired of beige," Judith said quietly, forcing a smile that never wavered for the benefit of watching eyes. "I'm tired of being forgettable," she added. "Forgettable keeps you breathing." He whispered, dropping his hand from her back as an older man approached, some district prosecutor with expensive teeth and cheap morals. Mingyu's face transformed instantly to a warm, welcoming smile before he opened his lips. "Prosecutor Kim, thank you for coming." Judith stood beside him, sipping champagne, playing the role she'd perfected over 3 years of marriage. Smile, nod, contribute nothing, be pleasant, be invisible, and most importantly, be safe. Except tonight the prosecutor's gaze kept sliding toward her dress, lingering on the memorizing details of the gold threading. She watched his eyes track the pattern, filing it away in whatever corrupt corner of his brain stored useful information. "Your wife is stunning tonight," the prosecutor said, and something in Mingyu's expression went arctic. "She is," Mingyu agreed, but the conversation didn't end there. "That's quite a distinctive piece. Is it perhaps a custom work?" The prosecutor asked. "My grandmother's design," Judith answered before Mingyu could deflect. "From Lagos. The pattern represents... It represents her heritage," Mingyu smoothly interrupted, returning his hand to her back with enough force that she had to fight not to wince. "Which she's rightfully proud of. If you'll excuse us, prosecutor." He added before steering her away through clusters of conversations that died as they passed and toward the balcony doors. Judith quietly let herself be guided, but her spine stayed straight, and the dress seemed to gather more light with each step. The night air suddenly hit her face, and all of the neon and ambition of Seoul sprawled below them right before Mingyu released her, putting a bit of distance between them. "What are you doing?" His voice had lost its public polish. "Attending a party," she said, "in a dress that violates every understanding we have about..." "About what?" She turned to face him fully, setting her glass on the balcony rail. "About how I should exist, about how being your wife means erasing everything that makes me me. About staying alive." He stepped closer, and for a moment she saw past the Mafia boss to the man she'd married, the one who'd courted her with poetry and patience, who'd promised her a life where she'd never have to choose between safety and selfhood. That man had been a liar, but she'd loved him anyway. Maybe still did, which made everything worse. "Do you understand what you've done? In that room, there are men who now know exactly what you look like. Artists who could sketch that dress from memory and rival organizations who could use you as leverage. His voice pitched. Then maybe your organization's rules are the problem. She held his gaze, refusing to flinch. Maybe the fact that your mother had to die invisible is exactly why I refused to. It was the wrong thing to say. She knew it the instant his expression shuttered completely, becoming the mask he wore when making decisions that ruined lives. His mother's death had carved him into something sharp and self-protective, incapable of separating love from control. "You don't understand the world you married into," he said quietly. "I understand I've been living as a ghost in my own life." Judith felt her throat tighten, but pushed through. 3 years, Minju. 3 years of neutral colors and silent dinners and being introduced as Minju's wife like I don't have a name. I am Nigerian and Korean and brilliant and here, and tonight I decided that matters more than being safe. Safety isn't optional. He breathed out. Neither is existence. She responded. They stared at each other across 3 feet of expensive balcony, and behind them, through the glass, the party continued. But looking carefully, she could see Seoul in there, the organization's fixer, watching them with those calculating eyes that missed nothing. The woman who'd taught Judith how to survive this world by teaching her to be invisible in it. Although tonight she'd failed her teacher's only lesson. "I can't protect you if you make yourself a target," Minju said finally, and she heard the exhaustion beneath his anger. He was tired too, she realized. Tired of the rules he'd inherited. Tired of the fear that never stopped. But too afraid to change anything, because change in their world usually came with a body count. "I'm already a target," Judith replied. "I became one the day I married you. The only question is whether I'm a target who exists or one who doesn't." A sound from inside made them both turn. Ide had arrived, her cousin, the only family she had left in Seoul. He stood near the entrance, looking uncomfortable in a suit he couldn't afford, searching the crowd with his withered-looking eyes, and when he spotted her through the glass, his face broke into a grin that died the moment he registered the dress. Even he understood what she'd done. Minju's phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously. He glanced at the screen, and whatever he saw there made him look at her with something worse than anger. "It's already starting. The dress is already being described," he said quietly. Judith looked down at the silk that had felt like freedom 2 hours ago, but now it no longer felt that way.